Okay then, we're back, and I'm joined by Daryl, and we're going to be going through and looking at some footage from the Bazzu versus Krag game in the Masters Championship. How are you doing
Mhm.
today, Daryl?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Nice lazy Sunday off.
Cool.
How about
Um,
you?
yeah, definitely a Sunday off, and well, it was a Sunday off, and then I'm having to do this. Hopefully, Daisy won't hurt me. Right. Okay. So this is Krag, and he is playing Starks in this particular game versus Bazzu's Free Folk in round one of the Masters.
Yeah.
And we can see the deployment here on screen. Now, a uh, quick just mention: this is recorded footage. This isn't live. We're not watching this game, so we can pause. We'll stop. We'll obviously talk about different plays and things. But first of all,
hmm
we see terrain placement. Only three pieces of terrain down on the board.
Yeah. Is that because of spacing?
Yeah, it is indeed.
Yeah,
Because spacing.
because there's quite a tight band in this one to put. It's like Fire and Blood, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you've got that
12
short.
inch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we see that. You see the double palisades, obviously stopping as size of infantry bases to stop things slotting down the side.
hmm
Um, and then the marsh just offset in the middle. What do you think of this deployment wise? Does it favour anyone, you reckon?
Uh, so I feel like it's been done in an attempt to. I didn't see who put what down,
Mm-hmm.
but it certainly does. As I know, we tend to see a big amount of infantry trays from the free folk players.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely going to hamper some movement from Bazzu, who's I believe Bazzu's a free folk player, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
So I think it's definitely going to get in the way of him getting into those table quarters. But currently, I don't think personally. I don't think it's massively weighted in one person's favour. It's interesting that there's no. I know stocks naturally have a pretty good morale. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. Base six for most things,
Mm-hmm.
versus the base eight for the free folks. I'm surprised not to see any corpse piles down at all.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's no cavalry trees either, so the bigger pieces like the bogs aren't really huge. I suppose like as far as like keeping space down and keeping things slow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, without being if personally me, if it was me, especially if I was a stock player, I would be wanting to put at least one corpse pile down because you can really maximize the damage to free folk with panic, as we both well know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, interesting to see none of those. Activations wise, they've both got plenty of activations, so chopping down those palisades is palisades are destructible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it's still two activations, isn't it? It's still two activations to get rid of them. So yeah.
On that note about the activations, there's 9 for Bazoo, and there's actually 10 in Krag's list. But the difference is that 3 of those are wolves. And the game mode is Here We Stand. Obviously from round one. Let's see how it pans out, shall we?
So we've got a little bit of just, I suppose, a quick note about the activation numbers, and obviously stock padding them out with wolves.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that we maybe need to remember is that there's no coin beyond the wall, and there's no world as sniping wolves for free. So that is really in the stock favor for this game mode. Although we know that the game modes were picked with sort of like not quite an anti-stock attitude, but like maybe just uh, the
They're kind of disenfranchising the Starks. That's the
yeah,
attempt,
like
anyway.
just trying to rein them in a little bit, basically. And actually, this game mode, especially, if being able to take wall down, being able to zap wolves, is very, very strong.
Yeah.
And free folk can't do that. So, That's interesting. And I believe we had a steer commander. So we'll quickly talk about lists, right? So Krag brought Roderick, so he's got
He's got Roderick in the Bowman.
Roderick and Bowman.
Lethal combination.
Yeah.
He's got, I believe it's Rob in a unit of Berserkers.
He has, yeah. With Grey and...
Yeah, he's got Stormcrow Mercenaries with Bran Hodor.
Yeah.
And he's got some Sworn Swords with the Rickon Osher.
Sure has, yeah.
And obviously the 3 wolves coming alongside it. And I believe the 3 NCUs he has are Walder, Sansa, and Arya.
Walder, Catelyn, and Arya.
Catelyn, yeah. Arya. Yes, yeah.
So that's the Stark side, and then Bazzu brought his steer list, which is steer. So combat units are Followers of the Bone with steer in them, and a skin changer. Trappers with a skin changer. Trappers with Harmer Dog's Head, which everyone knows is the free movement shenanigan 1-point attachment with a bannerman. Absolutely fantastic 1-point attachment. 2 units of raiders. Cave Dweller Savages with Tormund Giantsbane in. So we don't see Cave Dweller Savages quite as much these days. Me and Mickey both used to play them a lot, usually 2 units in a list because of how good they were. But they've sort of really taken a back seat recently. So interesting to see that, as well as Tormund. So Tormund, his attachment version doesn't give...
Overrun.
It doesn't give Overrun or Sundering, does it? It does something else.
Sundering and Vulnerable in the charge.
Oh, all right, excellent.
I think, if I remember rightly.
And then NCU's got Craster, Egret, and Mance Raider. So Egret could come in quite clutch here because Egret's basically the anti-Mance. The anti-Walder. And Mance, as we've seen in previous games, is really good once the conditions tokens start getting put on a unit. You can really sort of tone down some of the more aggressive units in the game. So we'll be interested to see how that goes.
Right then, let's get started, shall we? We'll see how it goes back. We'll pause the video if we want to talk about anything majorly. But yeah, so we see the deployment here. It's all pretty much as standard as we talked about. We'll see how the game plays out, really.
So it looks like we've got 1 bear there so far.
Yes, and the other skin changer was an eagle.
Yeah, cool. Which is a very sort of typical presentation when you've got skin changers. The eagle becoming almost a must pick because of the abilities it grants it. You ignore terrain, ignore like the negative terrain, and you can reroll charges, which is just fantastic.
It's technically not reroll. It's even better. You roll 2 dice and you discard the lowest. Take the highest. Yeah, it's actually somewhat better than a reroll.
So we've got Mance going down on letters.
Yep, and we've seen the double token drop onto the Zerkers.
Yeah.
Absolute classic.
Yeah. And it's sort of a necessity, really, because the attachment rob gives them an extra movement, right? So that makes them 7 movement.
Yes, yeah.
He lost his... does he still have sudden charge?
It's not Rob. No, he has the free maneuver.
The free maneuver.
But we saw there, Caitlyn went down onto Bags, and obviously Bags, the Berserkers, took the token off, and then Caitlyn, the Berserkers as well, taking the other token off. So those 2 tokens immediately just going off. So those first 2 opening plays, nothing happened.
Yeah.
We saw Ygritte coming down onto horses, and I believe he didn't actually do his maneuver.
It looks like he's doing it now.
No, he didn't do the maneuver. Walder's coming down onto Harmer's unit, and we see the past panic check. But they obviously take 1 wound because of Walder.
Just because it's Walder, yeah.
Yeah. But obviously Craster just going on to swords, replacing zone effect with the healed the wound back up. So we saw all that play, and essentially nothing happened. Like the entire tactic walls is full.
NCU board full,
nothing
happened. Yeah. Lots of posturing, but not really anything happening. So that's actually something that I had never really factored in. But the Catelyn and Bags combo, removing 2 tokens, is very good, especially against the Mance. Yeah, it does really shut down Mance. So he's now going to have to consider waiting on Mance, or
So you can see he's really kind of like wondering what to do with these raiders. Put them up into the range to kill the palisades, but obviously you put them into the kind of like threat range of the bowmen. So we'll see.
And that's definitely not a threat range that you want to be in, because Stark bowmen are efficient anyways.
Yeah.
But with Roderick in, what does attachment Roderick grant?
He gives the ability to make you unit vulnerable. Start the turn order, I believe.
Yes. I'll just double check on the Song of Ice and Fire stats builder.
Yeah.
The Song of Ice and Fire -stats.com/builder.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
So we see, while you're doing that, double checking Roderick, we see Greywind being kind of like, I think this is Greywind. It's not Greywind, sorry. This is Summer. Summer being kind of chivied along right into the back corner. This, I mean, I saw the game live, and I obviously have seen the recording a couple of times. This is going to be more important than I think people think it might be, but we'll see those wolves just shimming over to the corner for now. In response, we see just kind of like Bazzu just moving some raiders up on the far flank.
Typical turn one sort of Starks just wasting activations with wolves, and Free Folk trying to develop that sort of strong battle line.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, sorry, Mickey?
No, I was just saying we're seeing this other wolf. Oh look, is he going to shimmy over to the other corner? He probably is.
So Roderick, at start of any turn, grants vulnerable in long range, and he actually gives the unit that is attached to the ability to reroll against units. Reroll misses that are,
Yeah.
So
he's all about vulnerable units and things like that. He really wants to see vulnerable things on the board.
He has a card. He has a card that removes abilities as well, doesn't it?
Martial superiority.
Martial superiority there.
And he's also got one that gives him Crippler on 5s if it's his unit against a vulnerable. He plays. He's very similar to Barristan actually.
Is it a melee unit though? Is it melee?
No.
So it's all hits. Well, yeah. So
that's why you put him in there, because you get start bowman with crits on 5, which is a bit ridiculous.
The 8 dice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8, 4 on the so
shooting at something at vulnerable.
Defenders that fail the panic test become weakened and cannot trigger their orders until the end of the round. Fantastic against trappers.
We'll see. We will see how this unit this pans out, because, well, it is Free Folk. They have the notoriety. Shaggy Dog also now activating. He is going to join in on Summer's flank. Yeah, this is kind of like prime wolf shuffling that we're seeing here, but it's perhaps not the most intelligent of plays. We'll come back to this later on, and we'll talk about why wolves just being shuffled like this. Although yes, you're wasting activations, you're doing the right thing, but shuffling them away from the central line and putting them into flanks and things like that, it's just not a clever move in my opinion. We're seeing a little bit of shuffling there. Harmer's Order, I don't believe, comes down here. It might do. I think it does do. Actually, no, he can't. It's walded. The unit's walded, so there's no Harmer Order.
Right. And did he not use a grit?
He did use a grit onto Roderick's unit to stop Roderick having his abilities this turn. Or this round. Which makes sense. You don't want Roderick doing that 2-inch shuffle forward, shoot you, kill you kind of thing on the opening round, because that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
So we see here, Trapper's just kind of like manoeuvring around, really. He's going to position them.
Trapper's the bane of wolves.
Yeah, Wolfbanes.
Totally worldwide, absolutely, and especially I know a lot of people complain about Free Folk and how sort of cost-effective some of their units can be, but I think really trappers are probably one of the MVPs of the faction.
Yeah, of the game, I'd say right now the various different combinations they have with things like Steyr, NCU, um, and some of the other various iterations of things that they can bring onto the board.
Yeah.
So you see there,
Yeah.
Bazzu moving up his trappers, kind of like just shimmying around the bear, but the bear's going to move forward anyway.
Bears often used quite effectively as just roadblocks as well.
Yeah, well, that's mainly what they're used for, I think, nowadays.
Big old furry roadblock. I mean, they're not the worst sort of combat unit in the game either. Although they've got 2 dice with vicious.
Oh, it's only one dice. It's only one dice.
Is it one?
Yeah, but it's a hit on a 2+ and it's an auto wound kind of. Well,
that's
straight ignores armor, so it's not quite an auto wound. But no, so the difference here, the big difference here, right, is it's Steyr, and Steyer's reactivation card can proc off the bear dying. That is legit.
Yeah.
That is why you run bears with Steyr.
And that's so. If anybody saw the game that we streamed, Ariakos versus Larks, a couple of days ago, we saw. Is it North Remembers? Some good use of North Remembers coming from procking from Wolves dying, and having some strong activations of units which shouldn't really have been activating that round, in the wrong places as well. Really in people's backlines. So potentially might see something like that later on as well, which would be interesting.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Okay. I've just been realizing I've been using the wrong input for my microphone the whole time for Streamlabs, but it's okay. It was still picking noise up. Hopefully, it'll pick up less background noise now. So we see, I mean, it's shimmying, right? This is all just shimmying. And with the last activation of the round, you're going to see perhaps the most decisive thing of round 1, which is Krag making a push with Roderick's unit across to that flank. This is firmly saying that you are in range now. I can shoot you. You
and make you vulnerable.
Die.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You can now die.
I've not actually played against a Roderick commander with Roderick and Bowman before. I think that it's quite a nasty combo.
It's a very nasty combination, but it surprisingly doesn't do very well. Roderick Commander is one of those commanders who's, by all means, great commander, but he just doesn't put work in.
So there's some other really effective commanders in the force, so on there, and probably just a bit more like outshone. So it's kind of, I suppose, free folk, isn't it? You look at free folk, 90% of games are played as Harmer commander, aren't there?
Yeah.
Occasionally,
well, actually, not anymore. There's still a lot of Harmer, but yeah, not as many before. So important thing here, Roderick getting the swords activation first of all with Walder on the unit he's attacking.
Yeah. So start, and this is start of
round
2. Yeah. So interestingly, does he? Because it's start of any turn, does he make them vulnerable? Yes, he does.
And we can see there the Pressy advantage crit blow.
Right. So this is going to be 8 dice with crit blow on 5s, reroll and misses.
Yes.
As a ranged attack, and if they fail the panic test, to become weakened as well.
And that's
a lot of hits.
10, 11, 13 hits. That's 5, 6 crits. That's 12. Plus the extra one, 13. 13 hits off 8 dice.
And we're going into unit raiders, right? So 5 plus save, 8 plus morale.
And surprisingly, there we can see a huge number of saves. But of course, the vulnerable comes out, and dead. He saves 1, which means he takes 12 wounds. That was enough to just kill the unit in one go.
Feels bad, man.
And more importantly, this is the key here. That's a Waldered unit. So
Mhm.
that's significant. That's 1 VP going into the hands of Krag. Now, if anyone's seen a lot of Here We Stand, we know that getting the odd point here and there is massive. And just
Huge.
going 1 point up straight away at the first thing on turn 1, absolutely huge.
Mhm.
Roderick Cassell's pressed the advantage. Absolutely stupid damage output.
Yeah.
Um,
Fantastic rolls from both of them, but unfortunately that vulnerable token. It's all part of the 1-2 punch, isn't it? But
Yeah.
that vulnerable token really came in clutch there.
That's why you use it. You use it to set up. You use it for the crit blow. You use it for the re-rolls, and
Mhm.
then you use it to finish the unit off. So
Yeah.
yeah. We see Mance taking the bag. Sorry, the I was say the bags is under heal. The letters in response, and it's worth remembering. I mean, look at Bazzu's hand
Mhm.
right now. He's got a stupid number of cards. I believe he's got 8 cards in hand. 3 from the initial opening, 2 lots of letters. It's an extra 4,
Mhm.
and 1 from Craster.
Yeah.
And he's going for mancing the Zerkers as we saw before, and we see exactly the same counterplay being considered and taken by Krag, and he just counters the Mance with Caitlyn bags again.
2 tokens removed. Sorry, 2 tokens placed, 2 tokens removed, and Catelyn's still influencing the Berserkers.
Yep.
Now, if there's a swift advance anyway in this hand, this could potentially be a really bad day for Bazzu.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that Berserkers are good in combat, especially against free folk. They're movement 7 with Rob,
Mm-hmm.
and with Catelyn they're rolling 10 dice. So
big thing here. We see Endless Horde being played of when Ygritte takes horses.
Mhm.
So he brings the unit back on. Now I believe it is Endless Horde is deployment zone, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So he just deploys the unit of raiders that were just deleted.
Mhm.
He just deploys them straight back in front of these archers, and more importantly, they aren't unactivated because he had
No.
horses. And we see Arya taking crowns in response, and we're going to see a crowns check on, I can't remember which unit it is. Is it the... I think it's the raiders that have just come back on, or the trappers in the back line. Yeah, it's the raiders that just come back on.
The surveyors, yeah.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
They all just died and they all just came back. You want to blow again, but
Do it
massive,
again, yeah.
massive pass. That's
Yeah,
2
good.
crowns, by the way, that he's rolled like 9s and 10s on.
Yeah, man. It's go big or go home with free folk, isn't it?
Massive, go big or go home. Go big or die is what they always say.
Yeah.
So Summer just wasted activation. Boom, done. Back to Krag here. Sorry,
This can
Bazzu.
coming from somebody who's played as and against activation advantage lists in multiple game systems, including this one. That is the ultimate feel bad sort of move. Is the
Effectively pass.
tapping a model and going, yeah, that's activated. And you just knowing that that's you one more activation behind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, luckily there's no quote unquote summon in this game, because that would. Yeah.
So Harmer's going to activate, and we can see he's indicating his order there over onto Tormund's cave dwellers. So she's gonna probably shuffle up to the back of this
There's not
free
much.
unit of raiders.
So this can be a tricky situation for free folk players as well, because typically it's infantry trays.
Traffic jams.
Although, yeah, we're going to see some mammoths soon as well. So they're on like the ballista style bases, right? So could be interesting for deployment now, having things like that. Although you probably don't want to have things deployed too close to them.
You don't, not really.
No.
So, Tormund is now getting his free maneuver, and he's going to notice the archers still haven't actually activated, so they are still a threat, right? and Bazzu wants to be outside of the 14-inch attack range because that stuff is scary. And we can see
Yeah.
there he's positioned himself comfortably out.
So realistically, his maneuver was almost non-existent, wasn't it?
He gets 3 inches, 3 and a bit inches. I think this is more important than you might give credit for. Now, interestingly, it's throughout the game as a whole, it was always very unclear to understand where they were putting the eagle from Bazzu. I didn't notice it ever actually being placed, but I did notice the effects of it. So so we'll see how that pans out.
The horses are not available, right? And so the whole tactics
the whole
board
tactics
for
board is full. Yeah, so there's no sudden charge or anything happening this turn, and we see another wolf Grey Wind just being activated and passed, and the raiders on the close side here, just coming up to the palisade. One of the things I do appreciate with these two players is they both use activation counters properly, which makes it really easy to understand what's going on. And we see another waste activation, but it wasn't completely nothing. Shaggy Dog shifted a little bit. He's roaming the prairie over there in the corner.
It's frustrating, really, isn't it? Because it's just three points that are ripe for the taking, but it's getting over to them. I think those two palisades are sort of semi-protecting them at the moment, aren't they? Really?
They are right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much because I'll give too much away, but this game, obviously, we saw at the very opening of round 2, saw like first blood being drawn and like tempo increased in the game. I thought this game was going to be quite a slow burnout, and that one victory point was going to be a massive turning point. I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I messaged you before we started asking how long the VOD was, expecting a 3-hour VOD, and it wasn't a 3-hour VOD. He said it was 1 hour 40, and I was like, oh, are you sure we're playing the same game mode? Are you sure this is from this tournament? Because typically we've seen these games. Although, actually, no. That being said, the guys didn't go too long the other day, did Ariakas and Nox, but still, that was a bloodbath.
So,
Stormcrow mix with
yes, we finally see an actual activation from the Bran Stormcrows. You ready for this? That's an 1.5 inch move. Boom.
So realistically, he's just hoping that he can murder unit after unit with that have been welded with Bowman, isn't he? That's how he wants to get his point advantage, and he's happy to just play the 2 points a game, each 2 points a turn, sort of mission objective, so per side. Because realistically, as we've seen, as you've just mentioned, we've seen in other games that in actuality the games usually are decided by 1 or 2 points, and it's just from 1 or 2 units dying. While they've been able to turn off insignificant, and very killable units. Let's be honest, these guys aren't exactly
we see
tough stuff.
Tormund's unit activating, and we see Swift Advance. So this is a 7-inch maneuver, followed by a 7-inch charge plus a d6.
7. Does Tormund give them +1 speed as well? No, Swift Advance does. Yeah.
So 7 inches plus a 7 inches plus 1. So from outside long range, he could charge this unit.
Yeah.
Automatically.
And so, unfortunately, Cave Dwellers don't get their
bonus.
The bonus for 1 rank, yeah. But you did say Sundering and vulnerable, right?
Which is all you'd really want, and aside from the extra dice, those are the things you'd choose anyway. So Tormund
exactly, yeah. You're essentially doing the same job.
And we see a grand total of 5 hits there generated, which is definitely enough to take out a rank, which is all you want from Tormund's unit here, right? And you see, he is going to spend the vulnerable. Vulnerable gets spent, and we see a grand total of... Yep, that's 5 wounds.
5 wounds, yeah.
That's what you want. The panic test now, on flat obviously, but there's a real chance that you could see 2 but no.
No.
He
Yeah.
rolled maximum on all dice there.
So, are Bowman 6 as well?
7
They
morale,
might be
one
7.
worse.
7, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
No, it doesn't really matter when you roll a 12, does it?
No. No. But he's going to have to really think about what he does with this unit, because there is powerhouse unit, and if
they can be
he
redeployed. Remember, they can come back in this game.
they can be redeployed, but what I'll be worried about is the fact that if he decides to retreat, we both of those wolves are activated, and that's a free pivot and basically a free charge next turn with Bazzu going first. So he's going for a melee attack. Okay.
Which is fair enough. That you're not gonna, there's not a huge amount of threat from attacking free folk usually.
Yeah.
This is kind of worth it, and more importantly, it positions him so he couldn't be charged by the other unit.
Yeah. And we're looking at 6+ saves with the Bone Boys. No,
Yeah,
not the Bone
the
Boys. Sorry, with the
Cave
Cave Boys. But morale is very good on these guys. 4,
Yeah, 4
maybe
base.
5, 4. Yeah. So
We saw 4 attacks though, and
no hits.
No hits.
But like you said, it's a move without running away, isn't it? So
yes.
he manages to reposition.
There's a subtlety to this that that is more apparent than you might realize. So the Branzerk, the Bran Stormcrows there already activating means that these free folk raiders can now, they're going to go for the march. They do actually cross over the bog here, so really he should only go the 9. If he's going to go for that, but it looks like he's going to opt to go shorter anyway. There we go. And that unit of raiders is now activated.
It's interesting. We talked about decks on during the Ariakis and Lox game, and funnily enough, was said one of the strongest cards in the game, Swift Advance, certainly shown its worth here.
Yes, it is. Genuinely think it's the best card in the game. I don't think it's any coincidence that the 2 factions that have Swift Advance in their deck are the 2 highest rated factions.
Yeah, free movement is pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's like, yes, they also both happen to be the factions that run high activation spam, but let's face it, like, it's the maneuverability combined with the high activation that makes it work. So we saw the Rickon Osher Starksworn Swords, SSS, coming across behind the Stormcrow Mercenaries. I think, personally, this is the start of an unfortunate turn of events for Krag here. Because...
Lemony Snicket said so.
Yes. Because it's leaving these Berserkers alone against Trappers, Raiders, Bear, and Steers unit. And even a unit of Berserkers, which could munch through those units quickly and easily, is still going to struggle surviving against them.
Yeah. So we know they haven't got the toughest defense saves in the game, 5+. But they do have good morale. I think they're 5 base.
4 base
4
on
base.
Berserkers. It's insanely good morale.
Yeah. So they tend not to lose too much to panic, but the effectiveness increases substantially. Yeah. As they die as well. So that's always one thing to worry about.
Bit of discussion going on, a bit of wondering what's going on, and we see I can't remember what card that is now. Surrounded and Exposed.
Yeah, but he's only got 1 unit there.
Yes, but he controls horses, so they gain the token. So he chooses to do that on the start of a friendly turn to make them gain the panic token. So they don't lose any abilities. And then he activates Styre as his actual activation. And he pulls them back. How about that one for you? Twisty turn of events. pulling back steer a couple of inches.
Not, I suppose not what I would do, but again, I do have a bit of notoriety for being a bit of a balls deep player, so I'm not.
And the Zerkers come across.
So, Followers of the Bone are a combat unit first and foremost, aren't they?
Yes,
They
melee.
are first and
Melee,
foremost.
they
Yeah.
want to get stuck in.
And steer rewards is a
does.
bad word, I suppose.
The +2 morale, go down fighting, it rewards being stuck in.
It
You're
does,
right.
yeah. So go down fighting, I suppose, isn't a reward, but I suppose it sweetens the deal a bit when you do start losing people, doesn't it?
Here's the card play, though. Here's the card play. We see Steer's Vengeance coming down onto the Cave Dwellers. That's the reactivation card that Steer brings to Free Folk. Because those Raiders died first thing, he can reactivate them. And these Cave Dwellers are now hitting these Archers with all the bonuses that they could want, really. They've gone for the extra dice and the extra +1 to attack, hit. And we see 5 more hits generated, and we see 4 more wounds. This leaves the Archers on 3 wounds remaining. Panic test time with a panic token. And that is a lag is all hell panic test, but we see a pass come out.
So they shouldn't have got 2 bonuses, though, should they? They should have only got one.
Just got the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they went for the +1 attack die and +1 to hit because of one missing rank. Keeps the damage, and the panic re-rolls the 12. So those bowmen are alive on 3 health. After all of that, those bowmen are still there. That's pretty sad, isn't it, right? Pretty sad.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just rereading Steer's Vengeance because I've played that card wrong a lot. I've played it as a trigger when a unit dies, not just at the start of a turn.
It is probably the best reactivation card in the game.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Because in case anyone knows, as long as a unit has died in that round, you can remove an activation token from a friendly unit, and if it's within short range, they get +1 to hit and +2 dice from on that turn in any attacks, or melee attacks specifically. So this is another attack coming out. Ooh, yeah, loads of dice got spawned. This is another attack coming out of the Cave Dwellers. This is almost certainly going to kill the bowman. I believe it was another Steer's Vengeance coming out. And we see, yeah, okay, the archers are dead. So both Steer's Vengeances are down, but the important thing here is that Bazzu's just gone up the victory point in return. And he goes first next round.
Yeah, so he's staring another free victory point in the face, really, isn't he?
He's staring probably more than that in the shape of those wolves. When I said earlier about wolves being free victory points,
yeah,
this is now a full unit of Cave Dwellers looking at 2 free wolves.
This is where they become the free point.
Right. So we're seeing the overrun onto the Cave Dwellers here. Free wolves. What do you reckon?
I think that's 2 points well deserved, actually. But that's just me being salty because I don't play Starks. No, yeah, so good positioning. I think it was really good use of Swift Advance. I mean, he really dug through his deck to get those cards, didn't he? I mean, he's had pretty much half his deck out. I think it's lucky that he had the 3 cards that he needed. But certainly it has been a very strong turn for him. He's going to have to be careful about that other unit appearing in his rear flank and just murdering things. But other than that, yeah, it's that was strong.
The massive difference here, though, is that it claimed the 3rd zone, and so it goes to 4-2.
Yes, didn't even think about that.
Because the quadrant control, which is a really strong play from Bazzu, identifying that with the cards that he had, that he could go for that kind of like budum play. Now, interestingly, you can see him trying to place Roderick onto the board over there, and he cannot place it in a good position to get into the flank of Tormund's unit. So instead, he just drops it down right there in the front, covered by the wolves, of course. And we see the cut. We see it come down anyway, which is bound to happen. But remember, it comes in activated. So this isn't as dangerous as it could be. But as we know, swords is obviously an option.
And we've also got the North Remembers.
Yeah. The Eagle comes down onto the Stormcrow Mercs with Bran in the middle of the field.
Still no regular use of the wolf. Do you think that's ever going to change?
I'm building a list. I still haven't decided how it goes yet, how it's built. I'm building a list with wolves as the skin changer option of choice. Obviously, a couple of eagles in there as well. No, I don't think it is. So it's a disorderly charge on these cave dwellers into Shaggy Dog.
But we've got vulnerable, so they're 4+ to hit naturally, though, aren't they?
Yes.
It's a shame.
But it is still going to be vulnerable and sundering. So with the dice, the number of dice they're rolling, which is 7 full ranks, you'd expect 3 hits. It's not unreasonable that the wolf fails 2 here. To be honest, it's not unreasonable at all with the vulnerable token. And we see 5 hits, so ever so slightly better than average. And yeah, the wolf is almost certainly going to die. 1 failed, but obviously the vulnerable comes out, reroll the 4 successes, and we see 2 more fails. That is a dead wolf. 1 dead wolf.
That's another point, yeah.
Up to 5 VP. Pushing ahead, forging ahead, a 3-point gap now.
And was that their activation?
Yeah, it was that first thing activate. He did that as their activation. This is almost conservative. He pulls the cave dwellers back here.
It's something that I was considering as a good idea anyways. I don't think he can get out of the range though, can he?
He can't get out of range of the bowman, but the interesting thing here, of course, is that Roderick's ability is at the start of a turn.
Yeah.
So he can't make them vulnerable, which in itself is a positive. Now, of course, you measure the distance differently for orders and things like that, so he might still be within 12 inches of like the corner, but so you see Arya take the swords as expected.
Yeah. We're seeing another crit blow. Yeah.
This was a mistake from Krag here. He thought he had Sansa, not Arya. I was listening to the game, and Krag very much thought he had Sansa, not Arya, and so he wanted to get the crit blow card back from the graveyard, but of course he couldn't. So Krag, recognizing that he could have used Arya instead for something else, he actually realizes now that he's actually kind of like built his list wrong, or he hasn't been thinking about what he's actually got available to him resource-wise, which is a pretty big mistake to make, unfortunately. But yes. So instead, he doesn't go for the Arya play. He does. He just goes on to letters instead.
Yeah. Card's always good, and with a deck as good as the Stark's deck, it's worth doing.
There's a bog in the middle of the field, as we can see there. But he goes for the vulnerable token onto Tormund's unit anyway, from the letters.
Right.
So that opens up the shot from the bowman onto the vulnerable. Quick shout out to all coffee drinkers out there watching our videos. We see.
Are you drinking anything nice at the moment?
Just tea. Just tea. Yorkshire brew, you know how it is. We see Ygritte doing the obvious thing here, which is obviously taking the swords. This was the weird play, I think, is that by not taking swords and getting the free shot, and then just having the swords blocked anyway, like...
He might as well have just taken it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
at this point.
Any shot's better than this. This is something from up here, mate. On this Yorkshire team, a lot. There's a saying. There's a saying where I come from, and it's out's better than out.
Yep, out's better than now. And we see Ygritte going down onto Rob's unit, obviously dismantling Rob and his abilities, and Walder coming down onto the horses. Now, Walder, interestingly, goes onto the bear. 3 wound on the bear.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Surprised we didn't see that actually. Or we didn't see that turn 1, is what I'm surprised about.
No. But I think it was because he wanted the insignificant removed, right? Was that turn 2? That was turn 2.
Yeah. I mean, there was always Craster available on turn 1 anyway, so it was a bit academic. But he didn't even try for the bear. He just did a random wound on another unit instead. I'd have hit the bear and done a panic check elsewhere. So we see the free maneuver with Bran's unit kind of shimmying over some more. Because they keep forgetting about the eagle. Made it huge.
Yeah,
Massive.
yeah.
I do this.
That's what I do as well.
Game
Yeah.
piece is big because why not?
I think especially in a TTS commentator's environment as well, big NCUs and big cards makes a big difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
It really does. I am actually a massive fan of like properly indicating what's going on in games and making it very clear. So we see Mance coming down onto the money bags. There's lots of options here with the Mance play. He can of course take that vulnerable off Tormund. He can of course put the wounds back on the bear if he wants to. But he also has Craster available to him as well. Interestingly, we see Caitlyn on the sidelines, probably going to take whatever zone that Bazzu doesn't take, and obviously take off the condition token that Mance puts on. So it's a little bit academic activating Mance here.
So do you think it would be better to put Craster down now, get the wound back, get a card instead of taking that thing off and keep Mance's sorry, Caller ruled it as that's not how it works, right?
Yeah, you can't fill up the board after the tactics board is full. Is Carlo's ruling for this?
But there's only one red NCU left though, so we could just let him choose. Yeah.
So he takes the bags, he takes the vulnerable off of Tormund's unit, which makes sense. And we see Mancy Boy come down, and we put a weaken token onto the bowman, if I believe. But of course, it immediately comes off.
Comes straight back
Caitlyn.
off, yeah.
Yeah, just like it's a bit of a non-play with the Mance Caitlyn in the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's
failed panic check though, I believe, onto the raiders in the middle. Yep, 2 wounds there. So the big difference here is that Bazzu doesn't actually have to do anything, and he's winning by 3 points.
Yeah.
And even if he loses the cave dwellers, that's only
no
1
big
point.
deal. Yeah, it's no big deal. And then that's a unit of cave dwellers has to come on a flank.
Yeah. And we don't have Harmer's cards and we don't have Steer's reactivation cards, so they're not that dangerous in the flank, but they're still in the flank. It's still something you have to think about.
It's still 7 points in a zone as well.
Yep.
So we're not just thinking about their combat ability, we're thinking about their ability as zone capture.
Yeah. VP control, which is infinitely more important than any killing in the game, because you win the game by VP, not by killing. Unless you kill everything. So, shuffling round of units here. That was the Harmer move followed by the Harmer order. And did we just get a wolf pass? Pretty sure we just got a wolf activate and pass. Like we've not seen that before.
I think that's one of the frustrating things about the design of the wolf as well is the fact that they're essentially 1.0 point activations, with the ability to pass. I think they should, it's very difficult to balance, but at least
The making them 1 victory point led them to being less unfair. They are more balanced.
yeah.
The actual issue with wolves is the way they score victory points. If you made it so they couldn't control objectives, which you'll notice that the new mammoth and dragons, I believe, have.
Mm-hmm.
If they made it so that wolves couldn't control objectives, you'd immediately fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wouldn't fix the entirety of the problem, but the
Yeah.
majority of games like Game of Thrones and all these zonal capture things, suddenly the wolves don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the criticism on like Darkwings, Dark Worgs, and other game modes like that, where the wolves take the tokens that you burn an activation on, and you can, and it's a cavalry move, so they just burn and score 2 VPs from that, and that's obviously not fun to play against because there's nothing you can
No.
really do.
No, it's not at all.
So the top side of the board towards the tactics board is completely out activated now, pretty much for the free folk, and we're still seeing a bit of shuffling here in the middle from Krag, but he's still got the Bran Mercs available to put some effort in here. They are unactivated. This bottom flank for Bazzu, though, he's got 3 units with the Trapper Bear, the Raiders, and lots of other things.
Do you think he's going to trash that Palisade this turn?
I reckon so. I can't actually remember this. I'll be honest with you. This is probably the point where I stopped actually paying attention. Was recording other stuff. But yeah, I definitely think so. I know you can't see the scoreboard on the recording here, but it is still 5-2 to Bazzu. 2 points to Krag on our left, and 5 points to on our right. Now you can see there was a little bit of a jump. The game was paused briefly for thinking time. They had a little break, had a little look around, and we see the Bran Zerkers activating. We see Swift Advance.
And this is where they stop becoming dangerous. No, it's Rob Zerkers, right?
No, sorry, this is not even Bran Zerkers. It's Bran Mercs.
Mercs.
I'm so used to saying Bran Zerkers because of that combo being such a popular one, right?
We need to normalize Syrio Berserkers.
I know, right? Not Syrio Berserkers. You mean Syrio Sworn Swords, right?
No, Syrio Berserkers.
That seems like a bad thing.
No, man.
So we see Bran's unit going into the side of the Cave Dwellers. This is obviously a real threat, but this is just unfortunately like Cave Dwellers die, right? Cave Dwellers do die. But this is where Stormcrow mercenaries can't put the effort in because they can't kill a unit of they're just not going to kill a unit of Cave Dwellers.
Yeah.
We see 2 hits from Bran, and we see another 6 hits from the Mercs. So that's 9 hits in total. Saving on 6s, what? None? Was it 8 hits? He only generated 8 hits. Fair enough. So he loses 8, and then he passes. Only just past the panic. But there's only 8 hits. There's only 8 wounds.
Oh, so it would have been 5 there. I was thinking that would have been 5 in it because he's in the rear. So, however, we do need to remember that he's going first next turn, right?
Sure.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
He is. It's just like that actually feels quite bad. Like you've not really dealt with the Cave Dwellers. You're going to deal with them next turn, which is probably better in some ways.
Yeah.
But you've pulled more resources over to that right-hand side flank, or the far flank, and now you're allowing Bazzu to have much more freedom in this left flank. And you can see there he just shuffles the Raiders, the Trappers around.
Trappers, yeah. Trappers with a bear.
The bear does what? The bear shuffles down the row. Just yodel it forward. Go low the bear forward.
Yeah, I was
10
going to
inch
say.
march. You don't do anything, but come on, just do it. Because you can very quickly see a Walder Swords play here at the start of the turn. Do swords onto the Stormcrows and kill the bear with the Walder. That's not a terrible play.
But bears
for
never
Krag.
give VP, right?
Sure, but you just Walder it to get it off the board. More so than actually to actually generate any VPs. Now, interestingly, you can see there the Berserkers are positioned outside of trap range. So there's no traps coming down if they don't move. And we see the Raiders on that flank, who postured to destroy that palisade, withdraw.
So, do you think this is endemic of the game mode?
Yes.
Because this is what's been discussed in the past.
100%.
We've seen someone get an advantage, and now instead of potentially losing that advantage, he's just bunkering up, and he'd rather just try and wait 3 turns and score whatever points he can.
So we're going into round 4 now, and Bazzu scores 2 more. Krag scores 2 more. It's 7-4 to Bazzu. If Bazzu can kill one thing this turn, and he holds his 2 zones, it's game over. Just point that out there, right? That early burst of score he gets, and the nature of these kind of like 2 safe points you can score a turn, means that if you do get these points up, it becomes a lot easier. So we see Walder coming out onto the swords, as expected. And we see the Stormcrows attacking Tormund's Cave Dwellers.
Sorry, I lost you for a second there. So, yeah, first activation. Did he? Who did?
Walder swords.
Who did Walder?
He hasn't resolved the Walder yet. He's resolved the swords first. And he only loses 2 Cave Dwellers from the attack. The panic test, he rolled a 7. Right. There we are. So the 2 wounds and the pass panic check on the Cave Dwellers there means that this Walder play at the very start of the round was not as influential as you thought it might be.
Nope.
So we see Walder coming down, and he actually doesn't put it on the bear. He puts it onto the middle unit with Styre.
Was there two left on in the Cave Dwellers?
2 wounds left in the Cave Dwellers. Yep.
Yep. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking potentially healing them up, or just using them for an attack Hail Mary?
I mean, Cave Dwellers on 3 ranks, or on 1 rank, are absolutely godless.
4 dice.
They're
3?
barely worth the effort. By the time you consider that they're hitting on 4s, they're only marginally like 1 dice better than a unit of Raiders at 1 rank. You are, in my opinion, here much better off doing something like a Mance Letters play. So we see Mance does come down onto the horses. He puts a panic token onto Brand's unit, and he's going to do a horses maneuver somewhere. Do you think he's going to go for the retreat? Looks like he is.
Problem is, do you think he's just going to retreat horizontally? Because he can't go backwards because of the palisade.
I think he's going to retreat. Yeah, just kind of retreat to... We can see there he's checking it out. He's going to retreat to that position, and then he can pivot.
I think he'll still be within range of the bowman, though, right?
Might be in range of the bowman. Brand's unit hasn't even activated yet. Yeah.
Just charge, yeah.
You know, even the wolf can come in and just finish those off. So instead, he opts to go for the bags instead play, which we spoke about. The bags play being, you know, the more reliable option. Going for the 3 wounds, and he puts a weakened token instead onto the Stormcrow mercenaries. Now they don't have Brand's order this time for the next attack, and they only did 2 wounds last time. So actually,
Mhm.
statistically, like, it's not that unlikely that these Stormcrows don't kill them. But instead, we see the Roderick archers just assert dominance and move forward.
Yeah.
It's the obvious play, it's the obvious counterplay. Just
Mhm.
stick a unit of bowmen there and kill people.
Just do what they do best.
Yeah.
So 12-inch range, but effectively 14 with the shift.
Mhm.
Um, and I think the only problem that he's got here is because of where he's put them after this round, it's probably going to be another 2 rounds before he gets to use them again.
Yeah, this is kind of
Um,
like the issue. They're a little bit out of the game, and we see
mhm.
Ygritte going onto letters and actually going down onto Roderick's unit. He does choose to sacrifice a card. Using all of the tools there, shuffling them together, picking one out at random, and we see, I believe that's a Roderick card going into the graveyard. That
Nasty.
looks like combat prowess.
Hmm.
But that means no Ygritte onto that unit.
So it's quite a price to play, really, isn't it? Obviously, depending on who it is that which deck you've got, but there's others that wouldn't mind so much pitching cards, but I think star cards are, on a whole, good enough to want to keep. So it's a big decision, especially because Roderick's not really is. Oh well, excuse me, sorry. So Roderick can attack, but it's going to be shooting into a unit that's engaged, and the Stormcrow makes what 7, 8 morale. So he's got a chance of losing units as well.
Yeah, he has. And more importantly, if he does shoot into them and kill them with the shot, the Stormcrow Mercenaries don't get to do a pivot or anything.
Mm.
They're still sat there and they'd have to use their own activation to turn around and, more importantly, not charge.
Would they not? Because it is if it's
Surge
the
Forth is part of the melee. So don't get Surge Forth, and a Surge Forth is the pivot if you're engaged.
Got you.
I don't know if it's an intended part of the game mechanics, but yeah, it's very important that the Surge Forth, which is the pivot for any units engaged, is actually part of a melee attack.
Yeah.
So, final activation of the round, we see Caitlyn coming down onto the crowns, and Caitlyn goes onto the bowman.
Is that first activation, combat activation?
No,
Not
it's
final.
just Caitlyn coming down onto the bowman. And I believe that this is. Did I miss something there? Yeah. Okay. So it was the first combat activation was was the cave dwellers turning around and hitting the Stormcrows, and he did 1 wound on the Stormcrows. Yeah. So he activated Tormund's unit and he did 1 wound to the Stormcrows.
Gives credence to what you said, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
That was 2 ranks as well.
4+ armor save, and you've got no abilities. You 50% of your hits and you're on 5 dice there. So I mean, yeah, getting 1 hit or getting like 2 or 3 hits and then them saving like most of those is kind of expected. And we see the wolf now YOLOing in. Obviously, he was always going to make that. He had 12 inches before he even had to roll the dice. But it's not disorderly. This is just going to be 2 dead.
Shaggy dog.
2 dead cave dwellers, surely, right? Yeah, this is Shaggy. Summer, not Shaggy.
But Skin Chin's already been used this
turn.
Yeah.
So it's only 2. Yep, 2 dead. No 6s. Flat morale, which is probably going to be a pass, and we can see there the 9 rolled. Okay, Cave Dwellers are good morale.
They are very good morale, and I think one thing that maybe sometimes people underestimate in this game is panic, and how much damage panic can do. And
Yeah.
I think people rely on trying to build sort of like giga units that are great at wiping stuff out. In reality, death by 1,000 cuts is just as bad.
Yeah. Having units that can delete other units is important, but actually, if you can do that for as cheap as you can, thus giving yourself more wounds and more chances to proc panic tests, you're so better off. Which is why Bolton Cutthroats, in my opinion, it's not the first time I've shared this opinion on NRG with NRG. Bolton Cutthroats are one of the best, if not the best, unit in the game.
5-point
5
unit, I would
points.
say, yeah, 100%.
Small swords are up there because of crit blow and 8 dice.
Yeah.
Crit blow hitting on 3s. You pay that for. Sure, you're taking D3 wounds, but you pay all of that to take Champions of the Stag at 10 points, double the cost.
Yeah.
Sure, we're not talking about maneuverability, we're not talking about the aggressiveness and the defensive capabilities. We're just purely talking about damage output.
So they're the same in almost every regard. Same speed, same
Slower.
save. Yeah,
They're
same
4
save.
inches, not 5, but they are cav.
Oh, Champions of the Stag, sorry.
Yeah, Champions of the Stag, yeah.
Champions of the Stag, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Stag Knights for some reason.
No. Stag Knights are just a sad case.
Yeah.
They are just.
They are a meme.
They are a meme. Why take Stag Knights when Rose Knights and R'hllor Faithful now exist?
Oh, no. And even then, R'hllor Faithful are subpar compared to Rose Knights, aren't they?
Yeah.
The Lightbringers, though, are
Superb.
certainly looking like a very interesting unit. And I think if I do ever end up running a Stannis based list, it's going to be probably 2 of those with Red Priestesses in.
So there is ultimate sadness. We see 6 dice coming out from the Stormcrow Mercenaries. 0 hits with the weakened token.
Those Cave Dwellers are certainly surviving a lot longer than they have a right to.
Yes. I mean, Roderick's still got to activate. We can pretty much guarantee that those Cave Dwellers are going to die to Roderick.
But that's still 4 activations to kill them.
Yeah.
4 activations.
Swords, a wolf, the activation from the Stormcrows.
And then the shot from the archers. That's pretty nutty.
I personally would have just taken the shot from the archers.
Yeah.
You know that they couldn't have done anything after they attacked, so you just might as well just not send the wolf in, just deal with it your own way.
So an interesting thing, I think, is it Berserkers that are sat in the middle there?
It's the Sworn Swords with Rickon Osha in the very middle, and the Zerkers on the far right with the eagle attached.
Right. So we've got 7, 8 points there, and then hold on. The Sworn Swords got Rickon in,
yes.
or
Sworn
and then in the it's Rob in the other one, right?
Yeah.
So actually,
the attachment Rob, so that's actually a 10-point unit.
That's 10, yeah. So you're looking at 16 points sat there on that side now. So no, that's not going to happen then, is it? It's although whose units are there? Is Steer's unit?
Steer's unit's in the middle here. We can see him not going to activate. He's going to activate Craster instead. But Steer's unit's currently sitting in the middle.
So Steer's unit is 6 point plus 3 because of a commander. It's 9. Then we've got a unit of trappers there.
It's also got the skin changer, so 10.
10. A unit of skin changers. Unit of trappers plus skin changer. That's 5. That's 15. Yeah. So actually, if he manages to get everything he's got into the opponent half, he could actually just win the game this turn.
Well, he'd have to keep a unit back because he wouldn't control his own zone. So it's not worth pushing that.
No.
Or
if you could, killing Rickon?
Yeah, no, don't kill Rickon.
We're killing the wolf.
You charge it at the rear of Brand's unit. Charge at the rear of Brand's unit with that raider unit. Put some pressure on, because more importantly, that's worth a VP, and you only need to score 1 VP to win the game. Now,
you're right.
actually can't kill it, because if you he can no he can't because he rolls 6 dice from the attack, and then 4 maximum damage from the panic. We're doing 10 wounds.
No, yeah. So if he had surrounded and exposed, he could give them crit blow.
You mean
Visitor.
group assault?
Group assault. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But he would need
if
group assault to kill the Stormcrows.
Yeah.
The point is that if that's all that's stopping you from killing that unit because you can't kill them all, then first thing next turn there's a good chance you get a chance
VP,
to kill them.
Yeah.
So
He's got what 5 cards in hand now.
Yeah.
He's already used 1 Swift Advance. He's used 1 Endless Horde. He's used 2 Steer cards.
And he's used. I think he's thrown away or used both the surrounded and exposed.
So surrounded and exposed is the lose the abilities, right?
Lose ability, gain a condition if you control horses.
Yeah.
Personally, one of my favourite cards in the free throw deck, but not the best in this matchup.
No. I mean, a token's a token in the end, isn't it? But
yeah, exactly.
As far as abilities go, Zerkas might be worth dropping them on. But if the Zerkas, well, I mean, it's the unit and its attachment loses abilities, right? So lose Sunderland.
Lose Sundering. I mean,
yeah,
your free folk.
Right. Yeah.
Your actual, like, honestly, your best bet is to actually drop it on Stark Swords to take away crit blow.
Can it stop? Yeah, Stark Fury.
Stark Fury's not innate, so can be turned off.
Definitely,
turning off Bran is decent as well. Bran
yeah.
and Hodor.
Yeah.
Turning off Roderick and all of the abilities that the bowmen have. Like, there's all these really good options. The problem is actually, like, in theory, all of these things are only going to stop you dying. Whereas if you just kill him,
yeah.
And we see in a response to the maneuver into kind of like the Stormcrow rear from the free harmer move, we see Rickon and Osh's Stark Swords actually finally essentially entering the game.
Yeah. Probably because their hands sort of being forced.
Yes.
They need to find a way of clawing back a couple of points before the game ends, because in reality, even if nothing else happens for 2 turns, Bazzu wins. Yeah, so he's got a limited amount of time to start doing something. And now, unfortunately for him, he is not first player next turn, so he won't be able to, unless he gets crowns, he won't be able to turn off insignificant.
No.
Which is relying on. Although Cave Dwellers are worth a point.
Yep.
And Bone Boys, Bone Boys are worth a point. See, I really struggle with the concept of somebody having such a strong unit. Because they are. I mean, they are. They're 7 dice on 3+s with Vicious and Horrific Visage. And they've got Steers, what's it called? Good on Fighting, +2 morale. Yeah. So they've got, like, it's a good unit. It is a good unit. So is set for charge only when you've charged from the front?
Yes. Yeah.
So that would have been fun. That would have been a fun little play against the wolf, wouldn't it? When it charged.
Yeah. No, I think you have to be unengaged.
Unengaged, yeah.
So we see yet again Bazzu's trademark shuffle across with the trappers, and the bear is probably just going to shuffle over to the palisade. I'd have thought here. It's about time that palisade went. And the funny thing is here is that palisade's actually probably been more of a friend than a foe for Bazzu.
Yeah.
Stopping the berserkers from just YOLOing across the empty ground. He chooses not to go for the palisades, fair enough. And just uses the bear as a screen. Not surprised, we've seen this before.
Yeah, and nobody wants to take a face full of berserker, do they? Really?
Not really.
Especially because they're activating outside. Although, actually, if they did use a Swift Advance, that would put them in range of traps, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I see you've just disappeared from the camera there.
Oh, that's just because it's dark.
It's so dark, yeah. Alright, so we see Rob's unit actually activate here, and they push forward. And this is kind of like the commitment, right? This is the this is Krag saying, look, I'm not going to win anymore.
Mhm.
If this continues, I'm not going to win, so I have to commit.
Unless I start taking some action.
Which is about time. It's good that we see this.
Mhm.
I'd quite like them to go towards the middle, to be honest, personally.
Mhm.
Because the raider unit on the far end is just a complete and utter waste of time. It's
Yeah.
chasing that around is not. There's no point. You'd be better off just crushing through the middle and putting some real pressure onto Steer's unit at the back.
Do you think he's apprehensive about Rook with the Bone Boys with the Berserkers?
I think he is. I think Bone Boys onto Berserkers is quite a favourable matchup for the Berserkers because Bone Boys don't have armour. So you
Mhm.
turn that 5+ into a 6+ with the Sundering, and you just roll so many dice.
Yeah. As well as just laughing at Horrific Visage.
Yeah, you don't really care about Horrific Visage. And the funny thing is even if you do take any wounds from Horrific Visage, you're just going to
Makes it
roll more
better.
dice.
Yeah.
Which God, I hate Berserkers as a game mechanic.
Oh, I
I
love
like
them.
the idea.
They're actually one of my favorite units in the whole game. It was the first. So the first game I ever played was I played Starks versus Scott
Lannister.
Lannisters.
Yeah.
He got the 2-player starter set,
Mhm.
and I did kind of fall in love with them. But that's my, like I love I mean, I play Blood Angels in 40k because I like running forwards and just
Killing things.
smashing face. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Berserkers really resonate with me. But
My problem for the Berserkers in the game is that there's with the where morale changes and the way that the game works now, is that they are point for point one of the best units in the game because
yeah.
the way that it's very hard to one shot the unit
Hmm.
reliably, and if you can't one shot it reliably, then it hits back with 10 dice and it can very actually reliably one shot you back.
One shot you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're a menace.
If
They're a menace.
you talk about having Brand Zerkers is literally one of the scariest units you can see in the game because there's
Hmm.
nothing that can one shot a Brand Zerker because of the -2 lose abilities.
Hmm.
If you're that scared, you just go right -2 dice, lose abilities. You probably can't kill me now.
Hmm.
And we see here the shuffling, the actual shuffle from he chooses not to be aggressive. He's just pulling them up in column towards
Yeah.
that flank, and we see as a result this collapse from Bazzu on this flank. He's going to start coming through this
Hmm.
hole and put pressure onto Krag's
It
side.
it looks a lot like Krag is focusing almost entirely on one zone, and I think that's a mistake. I know he's playing from behind, but exposing one table quarter like that is risky, to say the least.
He needed to do something with the Berserkers when the bowman went down and he just held on this flank. It was
Hmm.
actually playing into Bazzu's hands because all Bazzu had to do was score as many points, like we saw, as he could from that flank.
Yeah.
And as we see there, the cave dwellers finally get deleted. It played into Bazzu's hands more because it was just like nothing was happening.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. The lack
So
of
did they
the lack of
did they
effort.
ever get did they activate that unit of raiders and charge? Then they didn't bother with the charge to the rear, did they?
They haven't
Of
yet,
the
but bear in mind the bowman shot. The bowmen don't get to reactivate. The raiders are still unactivated. It is
Hmm.
the unactivated unit left on Bazzu's side.
Hmm.
So what he chooses to do is up to him. Now, probably discussing it here, discussing that he can't pivot
Pivot. Yeah.
because of the shot, and he activates the raiders and charges. Yeah, he activates the raiders and rolls the charge distance. Unfortunately, I can't see the result of the charge. We see a 1, so it is actually a disorderly charge. But with no unit to help him out anyway, like
Yeah.
he was never. He can actually with the 2 extra wounds they'd taken from the panic test, he can in theory kill this unit.
Hmm.
Um,
6 hits. So they've got 9 wounds remaining, right? So
6
he's looking at.
dice,
He
4+.
wants. Yeah.
No rerolls.
Would have been 3+ if the dwellers were still there, but they're not.
Interestingly, we saw Brands hold the door come out, and there was only 1 hit, and we see it success, I believe. So
The success at -2. Yikes.
I believe so. It might have been 1 wound. No, it was the 1 wound.
Yeah, he took
but
over.
then
Yeah.
I think he succeeds the morale test.
That must have been a good roll. So they're 8 base,
Yeah, I
-2
think he
from
rolled a 9.
behind,
He rolled
10.
a 9, I believe.
Yeah, you should feel that then, right? Because he's -2 for being behind.
That's a good point. Yeah, he might have rolled higher. He must have rolled higher. So this is the problem now, though, for Krag. It's 9-6. How do you score?
Any point, yeah.
How do you score 2 victory points on the board, and
Stop.
score 2 zones, and stop? Like, you have to score 3 victory points, which they forgot to add the point for killing the Crave Dweller, so they just added that on now. So you still have to score 3 victory points before Bazzu can score 1.
Mm-hmm.
And if Bazzu does score 1, you have to score more victory points, because Bazzu
Yeah.
can now bring on Tormund's unit this turn, so he's got the most things on the board right now.
Mm-hmm.
Having some tray issues there. Mance had connect himself to the Cave Dwellers,
Hmm.
which is not a bad place to go, you know. I'd love to
No.
hang around some Cave Dwellers.
Would you?
Yeah, me and Tormund and a bunch of Cave Dwellers.
Yeah, but I don't think the cave dwellers are quite the same as Tormund. I think Tormund would have to be around, like, but I'm not entirely sure about the cave dweller savages. Like,
Well, even if they're not that fun to hang around, the idea that they'd just tear up my enemies and just eat people in front of me, like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'll roll with that. I'm a free folk at this point, so.
The Thens are pretty badass as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Thens are more.
Somewhat.
It's weird because the Thens are obviously kind of like really grim, but for anyone who knows, the Thens in the show got kind of like a little bit
Toned
abstracted
down.
with the Cave Dwellers. So the Thens in the show, I believe, ate people. Like, they were touted as cannibals.
Yeah.
But Thens in the books aren't cannibals. It's the Cave Dwellers who are the cannibals.
Yeah.
And it's the Thens who actually more run a feudalistic society that's very similar to the societies that you see in the rest of Westeros, but without a king. They instead have the Magnar, who is essentially a king.
Yeah. Do you know what I've always, and I remember it very, very poignantly. The first episode of the series, I remember watching it, and the nanny's talking to Bran, and telling them stories about like free folk savages that ride on pale spiders.
Yes.
And I still in my head I've got like that little bit of hope for Spider Cav.
I really love it. I honestly, like, I know
that would be unbelievable.
Like, from my perspective, I don't even know if they'd be any good, but the idea that could be brought into the game from a purely like running those miniatures on the table in the way that they do them would be amazing. I mean, I was goblin spider riders in
Spider riders,
days.
yeah.
You know, I used to have loads of them. And I'll be honest, the spiders were okay. They were a bit generic and they were bad because they had to fit on the cavalry bases, and they weren't quite what you wanted from a giant spider, really.
The
But,
Ragnarok was cool though.
Yes, exactly. The other spider models. That's Games Workshop. Anyway.
So we're seeing. Is this a pre-game aria? A pre-Team B
Pre-turn
aria?
aria, yeah. We're seeing the aria come out.
And that
Which
is
makes
a
sense.
unit of berserkers.
It makes sense. This unit of berserkers needed to do something, and what on earth is going on now? There's nothing wrong with that move. That move is completely fine. I'm a little bit confused as to why we nearly took it back. And we see Tormund's Cave Dwellers just being deployed over on that other flank. Now, they are supposed to be deployed within 6 of a flank edge. There we go. So, hi Summer. Oh, hi Grey Wind. There's a 12-point unit you can't kill. That's worth 7 points. Is he going to chicken out? I'd put it. I mean, you could put it over there. Challenge the flank of the bowman or something like that. Oh god, just stick it in front of Greywind. Make him rue the day.
He challenged the might of the Thens. Well, no, not the Thens. Well, I suppose because Steer is leading them, isn't he? So.
Yeah. And no one actually runs Thens. Competitively, anyway.
No, even though they're probably one of the coolest model bots. In fact, Free Folk have got some of the coolest models in the game.
Yeah,
The
100%.
Thens, the Thens, the Followers of the Bone, and the Great Cave Dweller Savages are all unbelievable.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I even like the Trapper sculpts.
They're a bit generic, aren't they?
They
But
are a
yeah,
bit, but like
okay.
they come across well. The Raider sculpts I really do not give a toss about. The Raiders just annoy me. But all the other sculpts are great.
Spearwives are cool.
Spearwives are
Spearwives are
good.
very cool.
Spearwives
Mhm.
suffer from the fact they're a little bit thin. Like they're very like they come across as feminine, which actually
Mhm.
is fine because they're meant to be spearwives. But like for me, it's a
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're expecting like Lagertha Lodbrok, aren't you? Not like
exactly yeah.
not Sucker Bomb.
Exactly, and it's a bit of a disappointment, really, that they aren't a bit more awesome.
Beefy.
So we see instead, because obviously he has to do the start of round deployment first, we see the area move going differently with Rob's unit, which is fair enough. So understanding the order of those start of round abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Have to be
Yeah, so first player has to do this first.
Yep. Unlike all the other games where first player has to do it second.
Yeah, and it gets all the advantages. Yeah.
Yeah. I've played games like that. It's just awful.
It can be.
Just don't know why the mechanic like that exists in a game.
So we're seeing a blast of the crowns.
Yep, crown zap
Oh.
onto the Stormcrows, and we see Mance weakened onto the Zerkers. Legit play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We haven't seen a sudden charge come out yet from Krag, so like the Caitlyn sudden charge with the Berserkers could actually be a real threat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we see 3 wounds taken onto the Stormcrows. That puts them into potentially dead range.
Definitely in the killing range, isn't it? Now, do you think there's going to be a scrabble for some wounds back onto that unit? Is there going to be a sudden charge? Is there going to? It's difficult, isn't it? Because there's a lot to balance.
It's the thing is, there's a lot to balance for Krag,
Mm-hmm.
and there's very little to balance for Bazzu. You know, there's also a real good chance he can just run those trappers over to where that wolf is, and he can just sit at long range, in short range of the wolf, and shoot the wolf. And if the wolf tries to run away, it gets trapped.
Yeah.
Like there's a VP just sat there waiting to be claimed.
Yeah.
And that is less fun for him than certainly I wouldn't want to deal with that.
So we're seeing a free maneuver.
Yep. Free maneuver, and he looked like he was going to play sudden charge, but he chose not to.
But he does have the horses, so if he does later take sudden charge, he's going to roll his automatic 6, and he get 2+2 wounds instead of +2 hits.
That's the dev impact, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, pretty much it's always the 1-2 combo, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you always see it.
I would be surprised if he doesn't have those 2 in hand.
He goes
he's
to the
changing
horses.
to Walder.
He goes to Walder. I'd leave swords open here. I'd leave swords open. I'd take the horses, play Walder onto the raiders, and get a sudden charge in. So, analysis paralysis coming out from the players here. I really like the sudden charge play. Just Walder this unit of raiders, kill it, get a VP, puts you on 8, right?
Yeah.
Protects your own Stormcrows a little bit more, and you then just have to find another VP somewhere this turn.
And he doesn't even have to do that. He just so Rob's unit outweighs the berserkers. So if he bunkered,
He could put
um,
pressure into he could put pressures into Bazzu's zones. The problem is Bazzu can pull over the 10-point unit in the Follows of the Bone,
yeah,
and there's very little that Krag can really do to stop that happening. All the bags. Now that's not the play.
yeah, he wants to heal up that unit, doesn't he?
I don't think that's the play because, and he goes for sudden charge onto the raiders. They become vulnerable, and he's also vulnerable with Roderick's order. I'm guessing. Yep, Roderick's order making them vulnerable, and sudden charge.
Combat
And
prowess.
combat
So they're gonna,
prowess.
so they lose their insignificant.
Yes. So where's Walder going? He's not first.
He's probably waiting to see if he needs to snipe the wound at the end, isn't he?
Actually, yeah. So the important thing here is that with the Crown's take from Mance, like Walder doesn't turn off abilities this turn.
Yeah. They are within long range of Roderick's units, so they'll become panicked as well.
Yep. And we see one wound from the traps there. Bit of a null and void wound, really. It's not going to help him too much.
He does need to roll his 2 dice, though. Sorry, he needs to roll his dice because it's disorderly on a 1 and a 2 after the traps.
Yes, it is. I'm guessing he's already rolled it and it's a successful one. Or not disorderly. Interesting, he couldn't play Roderick's card if it was disorderly.
Oh, yeah, correct. Takes 2 wounds for Stark Fury.
And we see 8 dead. 8 hits, and Bazzu doesn't make a single armor save. Does the morale and rolls a 9, which I believe is a pass in the flank of Raiders. Now they should have been panicked from. What was that? He rolls the panic test now, and he rolls 8, so he is dead. That unit has just obliterated.
And that's a point. That takes him up to 8.
Takes him up to 8, and that unit is gone. So this is with the first part of what made this turn possible for Krag to win. So he's done the first bit right. Now, when he pivots, he is actually moving, so he's got to be careful he doesn't take the wounds from the trappers here.
The second unit.
Yeah, the second Harmer's trappers. Now, I apologise in the recording if there's any lag on the game. I was actually recording a live stream at the time, so any jerkiness in the game that we see could be caused by that.
What were you recording at the time?
Stats Tourney Ground, Monday night Tourney Ground. So yeah, the start storm sword unit is 12.6 inches away, meaning that the trappers' traps can't be used on that unit. Makes it a little bit of a pillow-fisted trap then, because you're not going to be able to kill these Stormcrows this turn, realistically.
Yep.
What do you think of the game? What do you think of it?
I'm surprised it's ended up where it has, because I genuinely thought Bazzu would have won by now. But he had such an advantage that I know. See, this is playing from behind and having a good hand of cards. Having that, like I said, and you confirmed, very rarely are you going to see a sudden charge without a devastating impact, and it just makes the charge so strong. And against units that aren't really that survivable already, do some major damage. Combining with Roderick's card, that's a 3-card turn, plus an NCU activation, but he gained 1 VP, which has taken him far enough forward that he's got to a space where he might actually be able to take the win. I think it's definitely worked out. It was played well, and it's worked out in his favour. So yeah, I'm sort of interested to see who wins now, because I had almost half consigned
Bazzu the victory.
Bazzu to the winner. Yeah.
Now, interestingly, Bazzu's maneuver, he opts to just kind of like push back into behind Brand's unit there, protect their rear, because he doesn't want the anything to come into the rear of that unit.
Mm-hmm.
Ball is still very much in Bazzu's court, though.
Yeah. It's his game to lose now, isn't it?
Yeah, Krag has to do something to win. Bazzu just has to not die to lose, or to win.
So, would you want to see? So, I think the play with the dwellers going down there, potentially big mistake, not out of the realms of possibility for them to die in one charge from the berserkers, especially if there's another.
Weaken Zerkers, and more importantly, Greywind in the flank as well.
Yeah. Is let me see. They've only used one dev impact so far, haven't they?
I don't believe they've used any.
He just used dev impact there, didn't he?
Sudden charge.
He didn't use a devastating impact?
No.
Oh, dear me.
So there are options. So we're gonna keep watching this. We're gonna keep watching this this game through. The lag is unfortunately pretty bad from an observer's perspective, but we are gonna see some plays come out here in a second. We're gonna see Ygritte come down onto horses, I believe, after that charge has come out and killed that unit, and we can see a shuffling on another unit from Endless Horde. That raider unit comes back on, and we see Caitlyn taking the letters. It's pretty game over now, right? I don't see how, aside from the cave dwellers dying, I don't really see how this game turns in anyone's favour, aside from Bazzu's. What do you think?
Yeah, agreed. So that's a Caitlyn went on letters. Yeah. Sorry. So he's probably digging in his hand for another sudden charge.
And
if he hasn't already got it,
he's taking that weaken off the berserkers.
Yeah.
100% he's going to decide to take that weaken off the berserkers.
And that, so as we've discussed already, a move 7 berserker unit with Caitlyn influencing them. That's 10 dice.
Yep.
It's not out of the realms of possibility that they could one-shot that unit. If they do, that is going to be a draw. No.
If they one-shot it, it would actually go to a draw. Yeah, because they go.
No, would it not win? Who would have the most points on the table?
Well, that's the thing. It would actually be. Well, technically, it would be Krag.
Oh.
Because he's got less on the field currently as it stands. Or by definition of the cave dwellers would be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this game obviously will come down to the last charge here. We will see how it pans out. The two of them obviously having a long discussion here about what they want to do, and we can see there that the charge does come out. The swords taken. Crasta takes the swords there, and we see a heal come out. Or even not even a heal, just getting cards even. Yeah, you did the heal and cards to stop the swords play, and we see the berserkers charging into the cave dweller savages. Cave dweller savages taking a huge beating, but unfortunately not dying. And the cave dwellers surviving Greywind as well in the flank. So overall, the Cave Dwellers are still alive. They did attack back against Greywind but missed. And we see the final board state something like this. I don't think there's anything that happens now that can change the board state. The game is 8-9 in favour of Bazzu, and we see there the game comes to an end.
So end of the turn would go to 11,
11-10.
11-10. Yeah,
Yeah.
11-10 to Bazzu. So interesting.
Let's
So
just
realistically,
go back all the way to the start of this game,
Mhm.
and let's just quickly jump all the way at the end. Look at where Bazzu started. Let's go all the way back to the start. That's where he started. That's where he finished.
yeah. But that was really, that came off just a couple of charges, didn't it? That came off the Cave Dwellers, that swift advance into a sudden charge, not into a sudden charge, sorry, into a charge. Then capitalizing on that and just advancing through the Stark ranks, scoring those 2 or 3 extra points like we spoke about. And even though Krag did make good headway into sort of recouping some of those losses, he couldn't do it enough. And like we said, so this game mode does often come down to that person who can just kill that one more unit. It's not a huge amount. At no point did anybody score more points than the other player for having more zones.
Turn round 1. Oh, sorry, round 2. The first round of scoring when the Cave Dwellers had killed the bowmen.
Did they score?
That was the turn that Bazzu scored 3 versus Krag's 1. But you're right, that was the only turn.
Yeah.
And the whole game came down to 1 VP. Comments on the game. I thought Krag played well, surprisingly. I'd go say far, played well. He did do a lot to try and recover that game. But Bazzu's, so he had a unit of raiders down the bottom here, didn't do anything. The whole game did nothing, essentially. Unit of trappers with the bear did nothing. Steers unit did nothing. The trappers with Harmer moved around and used the Harmer's order. Maybe
realistically,
but
they zoomed Tormund forward, and that was it, really.
It was 1 unit of raiders and 1 unit of Tormund's Cave Dwellers that did everything, and the unit of raiders came back twice. Do I think this game mode? Is good? I think it's alright. In the older version of game mode, that Cave Dweller charge would have scored Bazzu 3 instead of 1 because it would have claimed that zone, and that would have been real rip to the game for Krag. So I'm glad they changed it. They've balanced that out a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, still not enough incentive to come forward.
No, I certainly think it's not something that I'm going to rush to put in any of the sort of IRL tournaments that we do. When I'm drawing up the next tournament pack, I don't think I'm going to include it unless there's like a huge community demand for it. But I don't think it makes for a very exciting gameplay, and I think
it's 6 and 2 3s. I think the start game we've seen and some of the other games we've seen, they have been good.
So I don't think that is because of the game mode. I think that's because it's 2 incredibly efficient, 2 very killy armies facing off against each other, and I think regardless of the game mode, that would happen. So while yes, those games were particularly eventful, I think if you had put them in, 6 or 7 other game modes, it would have been the same, beta or not. So yeah, but yeah, cool. So that, well done to Bazzu for progressing to the next round of the tournament. So we're currently filming this at the end of Sunday evening. So this will probably be getting uploaded either later on tonight or tomorrow. And by which time you will have seen the new pairings and the games for the second round will be drawn.
We have been given the game mode. So the game mode for round 2 is Here We Stand. The other one, is it Honed and Ready?
Honed and Ready, yeah.
It's Honed and Ready, which, if anyone doesn't know, it's the castle. The other one of the other beta game modes with the castle walls at either flank and effectively modified Game of Thrones. Quite a popular one. People seem to think it's very balanced. So that's up next, and we will see Bazzu up against I can't remember who he's up against.
I've got
You got the
the
pairings?
parents here. So should we just swap them out now? Song vice stats. Let's see.
Where's the it's the bracket, isn't it, that we want?
Yeah. So we've got table 1 is Locks versus the Border, so that's Stark versus Stark again. Table 2 we've got Stannis 1000, which is Baratheon versus Spleen with Stark. And then we've got table 3, which is Tobo Mott, which is Stark versus Bazzu Free Folk. And then table 4 we've got Rossi, who is a Free Folk player, versus Open City, George from Three Sails, who is playing Baratheons.
Yep.
So we will see some of those games. I believe we're just waiting for some confirmation on the game times and everything like that, but we'll advertise them as soon as they're ready to be advertised, and we'll get them basically streamed for you. If the time zones aren't very good, we'll try and hand them off to one of our community colleagues from the equivalent time zone. And failing that, we'll get a VOD and then try and get that sort of just like we have today, recorded over and discussed. But yeah, so we hope you're enjoying it so far, and thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
Thanks, Mickey.
It's all right, Daryl. Thanks a lot for joining me. And yeah, we'll catch you next time, guys, for some honed and ready action in round 2 of the A Song of Ice and Fire Stats Online Masters Championship. Take it easy, guys.
See you then.